Appreciate those of you that have come in here today, and seriously, there's no such thing as stupid questions, so please feel free to, I'm getting used to this. And so don't feel like there's such thing. I may give you some stupid answers, but there's things for stupid questions, so feel free to speak from your heart. What I've done is, did this last night, I just threw it together quickly and ran it off this morning. Just some tidbits of information, no particular pattern for them or anything. Just some things that have gone on the last 2.5 years that I thought maybe some talking points for you, questions you have about some things, maybe refresh some of the memory of things that have gone on the last 2.5 years. And by far, this is not exhaustive list. There's so many other things that we can talk about. And I promise you that if you see a bunch of successes in there, don't get Donnie to tell you it takes a village to make things right to school. And I made as many mistakes as I have things right. But I do appreciate the opportunity we've had to serve in my 8 years. The cover letter tells you why the reconsidered, and I hope it speaks for yourself. I don't have to do what the plan tomorrow. I'm bring on to school. Try to be careful prayerful and then make these decisions. Just offer yourself, try to maintain a service as hard as best you can, and if people want you to serve, they'll let you know. If they don't, they'll let you know. All right, any questions? Any comments? All right, we're ready to go on.
Does anybody have a question? If not, we'll move on to the board. Okay? If you think of one, just acknowledge and we'll try to get you into the conversation. Mr. Wilson, would you start? Do you have any questions for Mr. Wilson?
Yes, I appreciate Mr. Poston and what he's done since he's been on the school board. I think he's done a good job. Not everybody's perfect. We all have things we can do better in. And one question I have for you, Mr. Poston, is holding people accountable for what they're supposed to do. I know you do that, but can you explain in what processes you do that?
Well, you don't do a flash in the pan decision. You get all the information as best you can. Every single one of us, as you said, is not perfect. And so there's no question about it. Whenever you hear that someone has done something that's improper, whether it be illegal or just improper, you got to dig into that situation, get the information as best you can. Because that's their life, their livelihood, and they have family, they have friends. At the same time, we have obligations to our children, and those are not easy decisions to make. Never have. And if we get comfortable before we enjoy them, there's something wrong with them. There's not a one of us in this room under the right circumstances make some major boo-boos anytime, anymore. And God forbid that we do that, but if it happens, then we feel the responsibility for leadership to make decisions quickly. And their role that they are placed over a group of kids especially. And I've had to make some uncomfortable decisions, and I mean, I've had to make them with friends. And I made the statement that my mom's still going on out there. There's some things that happened. If I had to make decisions, if my mom had been wrong, I would have had to make them in that regard. And she could beat me up and get home. But it's never easy, Mr. Wilson, to make those decisions. You just don't make a real quick decision unless it's one that requires a quick decision. Most things can require a little bit of time, a little bit of investigation. Because if you don't dig into it, you're going to have to answer more and more questions.
Yes. Probably the public is a lot like I was. I thought maybe when something happened, you just go in there and you just find it out. But I realize it's not like that. I've learned a lot. And I think you handle that very well. I appreciate your answer, and I'll pass it on to you. Thank you.
Mr. Poston, I know there are many, but what is one of the biggest challenges you see that's facing the school district?
Well, right now, it's been able to fund our programs to the level, if we want to take that next step and providing some advanced classes that enhance our curriculum as we hope to. And I understand our culture. I understand where we are as far as what we're capable of making doing financially. I also understand this is election year, so the budget's getting passed in election. But first, I think that's probably the hardest thing, because if you read through my notes, you're gonna find out, I would love to see some additional curriculum enhancements. I'd love to see some wonderful art investment in our art program. There's no question that there are so many kids that are talented in those areas, and they're not talented in athletics or other things. They can shine even brighter. I hope that we get to a place, and you know, if we partner with a lot of the businesses and the companies that are saying they won't become a part of this, and that we're talking about this new initiative that the mayor's wanting to get going, well, talk is cheap. And so what we've got to do is try to put feet on those things, and that's the hardest part, is getting people motivated enough to say, yes, I want to involve, I want to do that, I want to help see the advantage. And for them to combine the fact that our future workers are going to be, or our children are going to be their future workers, then if they see it, if they've got a picture of the future, then maybe a lot of them will buy in now. Economic challenges, of course, all tied together with our need for what we need to do in education. That's the biggest challenge.
I guess my question, everything deals with money, especially when we're mentioned a hard spot in Campbell County. But I guess one of my questions is there any way that you can see in the next year where we could maybe fund the school nurses a little bit better, or in any way maybe get the RO? I know you said it in something, maybe it's on your interview in WIA.
Yeah, and it's been
ROTC at Jelson High School, and I know it takes money, and takes all you see anywhere we could get that.
We're not going to get it if we don't ask, we're going to go out and try to get it. I've made several contacts in the last 2 years with different military people, and there's a lot of obstacles that you have to really face. You've got to do needs assessment for the community on that. You know, you've got the Marine, Navy, and Air Force groups that have people, and I've talked with, you know, we have an Army group that's got the high school program. I think it'd be good for one of the other branches of service that did the program start with military. Well, I've been gone 9 years, and so came back, I didn't realize that the program was gone until I came back. It's broken off. There's as many boys and girls over in that area that benefit from an ROTC program. You've got to get the need established, you've got to get the community behind it, and are there enough children that can support that? And do we have enough funds to match what we have to match to get such a program going? And two, while we're there, I mentioned the band program, Jellicoe deserves a band program too, and so we're making tiny steps there, trying to build the music program up. But at one time they had part of the band, and they were making some success with it. I'd like to see that get back on the road. But I've never gone up there, so you're going to get the room set up and have. And the nurses program that we're going to be putting it in our budget, making sure that we're all covered. Well, we were able to hear since before here in December, maybe to get some additional hours by closing out some accounts that's available. And so there's going to be some hours added. We just want to get back to school and get it rolling. You've got, I think that with fifth district, you look at overall pupil teacher ratio, and you look at the overall pupil expenditure, we may be spending on the pupil expenditures may be up there, but you're talking about more schools, and you're talking about schools and are way out in the community. And I know a statement was made on the radio that opposed to probably be opposed to closing small schools. Yes, I am, and for this reason. They're going to close themselves if we don't give the full support that they need. And I think that they're flourishing. And I understand why they say that that's an economic thing. Well, then we get the big schools going, and then people start screaming they're too big. So it's a darn if you do, darn if you don't situation. I'd like to, and we may be able with those small schools to do some of the innovative things for places and all that. I think it should be done at the school level side, and not somebody else. That's another thing.
They can keep the virtual schools in-house instead of going with signing
That's
contracts with.
that's my personal opinion. I'm not speaking on that. And we've got the ability, we may not have the full capability yet, but we can get that with additional technical assistance. Of course, once again, if the bucks come our way, why should we not try?
And something else I'd like to say, a lot of people want to compare you with the previous director. And, you know,
Yeah, I hope.
well, what I'm saying, I'm not going on with one of you, but they're talking like he's done this, done that. No doubt he was probably a sharp man. I didn't work with him long when I was on the board. But there's one thing I can say about you, you've not brought any shame to this council. And you've always, I feel like you've always had the kids there in your heart. And me and you've not always gotten along, but, you know, last little bit we had, and I just want to say I appreciate you. And I hope everything works out.
Let me say this, I don't care who you are, if you hate my guts, it doesn't matter. We have a responsibility to the children of this county, and if we can't come together with our hearts and minds to make sure that we've done the best for them, then we're out of this, we need to go down. We need to go down. Lord record, we've almost done the close. And we're working great together now. Several of us, listen. Friends, it's not about me, it's not about a single one of you up, it's about those kids. You hear it all the time, and make fun of the flowery words, if you will, but that's what we're about. We're about the kids. I want the same thing in every district. As quick as possible. We don't need to make a difference. We need to try our best. As we can, everything is.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
John, can you talk, I saw in your notes here about you touched on the feasibility study, about arts and schools and things. Talk more about and also about increasing AP classes at our high school. Those AP classes are great. They're challenging classes, and they get the students on the high school level prepared for college courses. Talk about those two, the arts feasibility study and AP classes.
Well, the arts, let me just mention this. I picked up on something some of you all may have this week in the College Press. What LMU is doing and covering gown. If we could get with some of the, I used to belong to the Knoxville Art Council, and our probably doing it too. I don't know, Miss Freeman, she came in as a music teacher. We had all these blowing ideas about where we were going to go. Once again, the dollars, always scarce for that. But I would like to see us partner. There's an art association in LaFollette. There's one in Carroll. We're close to that to visual arts. Why can't we have community art program tied to the school where we can partner with those things? And there's grants available somewhere. We've got to do our best to do that. And we've made some small movements in that direction. That's good. And some of the kids, and I repeat again, some of the kids that absolutely could excel in some of those areas, it's actually a motivation to them to do some of the things that they just like, science, math, some of those things. Because they know in order to get the scholarships and the training and the art, they're going to have to do courses. And there's a lot of children that have been, and arts and technology, there's no limit to that. And we need to do more partnering, and we're beginning to do some of those things with the Tennessee Tech, we call it, technology something. But anything we can do to partner with other organizations, whether they're public, private, or educational institutions, we need to do that. And like I say, we've been making inroads in some of those things. And the other question is AP classes. Now, Mr. Nightford and I have had several discussions on what, and the principals of the high school on some of the subjects that they'd like to see. And these years, we want to say some comments about that. One of the things that concerned us when we started talking about the AP, that their test scores weren't even figured in. Some of them. And it actually hurt our score some, but at the same time, I think the state's making some changes in it, whether the AP test will absolutely become part of it. At least that's part of our score. I'd like to see us offer this the same thing as any of the larger high schools. And of course, there's something in here that's mentioned on the CT part, technonics. Don't ask me about that. That'd be like you asking me about home economics. Explain about the cooking side. I deal with that. Now, we've got people here who do all this.
And where are the STEM programs?
STEM is, and STEM is moving, and when I say moving, we're actually going to be doing some additional partnering with the St. Powell organization. STEM. Actually, they're going to be partnering with us, maybe next couple of weeks. We're having a science fair that's going to be judged, and the number one winner, $1,000. Second place, $750. Just met with 6 directors in the St. Powell board this week. They're going to be offering a $1,000 scholarship for a high school student, Delta County High school student, Delta High School. And on the STEMs, we're partners with Knox County. We've got several Sumner County planned. And it's just on the cutting edge of the district. And some people have what we call STEM's high school. And we may not be there for that place yet, but it's something we need to look at. And we are allowed to have 2 students now to be housed in Knoxville STEM Academy. We have to apply for that. And we're part of that. But now we're beginning to be part of the St. Powell. And see, we had, several years ago, Campbell County, for whatever reason, pulled out of St. Powell. But we're back with the organization now. We had a private audience with the gentleman this week. I said private. Ended up being 3 directors there. But whenever a guy takes time out of his schedule, works with the State Department, just to meet with the 3 of us. And I had Amy and Richard in the finance office go with us there at 4:30 meeting this week and talking about how that we could handle the strategic compensation plan as it's going to go. There was a lot of confusion about that, and we found out it's just not as difficult as we first thought. And we'll be able to use some of those performance monies that are coming to provide increased academic training coaches. And one of the things I mentioned in the bullets here, we're going to look at it if that's an acceptable purpose, is the behavioralists. We're sending feelers out now. I'd like to see a behaviorist class in all of our elementary schools in each of the districts, not just one class, not just 2. We need more than that, because do you know anything at all about the culture, the home structures, and what have you, the problems we're facing now? You know that the family is a little bit disjointed from what we knew growing up. And a lot of these kids come to us with a variety of issues and problems. And so and you've got to provide as best you can, and the laws are very strict, the least restrictive environment. And sometimes it's almost an impossibility. I know as council now had a major discussion about the transfer in the county this week, how hard it has been for displacement in the other county and the difficulties we face just housing that young man here. But we have a responsibility to that job as we do the other 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Thorpe.
Now, you and I've had several conversations over the last couple of weeks. I'm ecstatic that you're coming back to this 3rd term now. Some of the people wasn't there tonight at Coach Lake. We had that meeting. Maybe you can touch on that and let these individuals in the audience know what that's all about when they're commissioners. And maybe tell us how you're going to work with the mayor's office on trying to get to that.
Well, the meeting was actually, and I didn't even realize until I got there, that it was the total focus was on education. And, I felt like, well, in high weeds there for a few minutes, and didn't know I was gonna be doing a presentation, but that worked out fine. The meeting was called because there's 1,900 acres that's available to Campbell County on the interstate up here at Exeter. Okay. And they have a lot of access to develop that area. There's a lot of people in the East Tennessee region that's looking at the possibility of locating major industrial sites there. Now, one of the things that, and I remember as a supervisor, Don Steiner called me over to the office of the town meeting with this group, and the big concern that they had then is they come out and do now. Where is the educational system, and what level is it to provide what we, our families, what we bring in? And of course, at that time, most of the people that I met with were foreigners, you know, and their educational system is so different than ours. I mean, they pride themselves in certain things, we pride ourselves in certain things. But they wanted what I call a high-class, highbrow educational system, and we are what we are. But at the same time, in order to attract a lot of business, not a lot of industrials, we've got to up our ante on our offerings in education. We've got to show a full support and funding for education and what we are. And that's scary from the standpoint that am I going to be the errand boy that's going to go out here and cry, we need a tax increase, we need this and this. What we need is a change in the culture and an attitude toward how we view education. And that does not happen overnight. It's a layered approach. You just a little here, a little here, a little here. Listen, I may be dead and gone, but if we will just keep in place some of the things that we've seen take place in the last 2 years, we will eventually get there. It's not about a person, it's about a system. It's about layering this thing to the point where, yes, it is the kids, and yes, these are the things that can get them where they need to be. It's just like ACT scores, and I addressed that in there again, and I know that's a major concern for several of them. ACT score is a composite of 10 years of education or more. And so, what do you expect? We have to start in the lower grades, making sure that everything is enhanced on the way up. And then two, yes. I went to school in an upper bound program in 66 and 67, and there was a class called Test Sophistication. And they taught us how to take tests, or in fact, they even allowed us to take SAT and ACT, those types of tests, and some tutor occupational tests, those types of things. And that's, of course, anymore, our kids are taking tests every day. But maybe we're not putting as much emphasis on how to test, and maybe that's something we're going to have to work on some a little bit. We've got people that's working with us now on ACT prep classes. I expect, we really are holding our hope out that we're going to see change. I know the state average for Tennessee is 19, and I'd like to see us at least get to that state average. I know we've had 4 or 5 years of a 17. Now, in 2009, everything changed. They tell us not to look back on scores from 2009 previous, because from 2000 our archives, if you go online and check, they only go back to about 2005. So from 2005 up through 2009, you'll see higher scores both on local and state levels. And then in 2010, when you see the change, there were only a small number of students that took those ACT tests in 2009 previous, because ACT was only set up for those planning to go to college for the most part. Of course, back then they also took the SAT test. And so now all the juniors have to take the ACT test. I'm getting off the list. It's the same approach. You build for the future. You don't, listen, man and woman does not have a baby overnight. It takes 9 months. And
You're going to be working with the mayor and.
Oh, yeah, and of course, the mayor and his group, they want to get everyone that they possibly can to partner to make this work. And so I've obligated our people, of course, or whoever's here, I can still be obligated, trying to do their part. See, at least we're on the same page. We've got to get on the same.
We had some schools that really made some strides last year, Maxwell Elementary School being one of them, and we want to keep the momentum going. So there's not a lot of personnel changes in the possible, right?
I hope. Of course, we're starting next week, a meeting with our teams, our leadership teams in school, and we're looking, we've got meetings set up with each one of them, Monday and Tuesday. We're going to be looking at what they have as far as needs for their particular school and what the implications are in the budget. And of course, we may have the Cadillac list, and then we may have, the middle list, and then we may have the Wilmar list over here. But we won't try our best to meet those needs we can, as long as they are appropriate needs for the children.
Thank you for
Mr. Poston, I just want to say, again, thank you for everything that you've done the past 3 years. Just to reiterate what I said a couple weeks ago at our school board meeting, that, of course, I do support you. And I find that very important, that we all support you in the future, because you have made strides, your team has made strides. Just like Roy said, we've got schools that are selling. We didn't have before. When you accepted the job, it was a mess. We were all aware of that. Some of us were new at that point as well, going into that. And so we've all learned together. But my question to you is kind of a flip of the things that have been asked here this morning. Have been, what are you, planning future plans and things like that, and they're great questions. My question to you is because the 10 of us sitting here have a great responsibility, just like you. We're elected by the members of this community, this county, and so we bear the burden and responsibility, I feel like, just like you. And we're being held responsible, just like you. And I think we will be. My question, though, is what can we, as a board, do for you? What can we do as far as involvement or helping with, as best we can, the commission and things like that? What do you see? And this may be something that, this will be an ongoing thing, hopefully that you can come back to us and say, I need your help. But just off the top of your head, or what can we do to help you make this education system better and keep it going in that forward?
It's tough, a lot of places at the same time. I feel like we've had a really good working relationship with our board. And having said that, those that differ, sometimes often called the loyal opposition. That's what makes our country work. That's what makes our communities work. Because how do you really dig down sometimes to some of the needs unless you see the good, the bad, the ugly, and the comparisons of thoughts that people have, and ideas of how to make things change. But to answer your question, I'd say just encouraging words is as important as anything sometimes. Because I'm going to tell you what's true, that no matter whether you think I'm howdy do here or the Pope, it's a long spot for you. And you guys, sometimes you make me feel like I could float, sometimes I feel like I could crawl under a rock. But that's okay. Listen, I got broad shoulders. I signed up for this year. And if life was all perfect, then I'd already be in heaven. So it's not. And but I appreciate, honest to goodness, and I kid you not, there's not one on this board that I have a heart to avoid in any way, form, or fashion to do anything that's not true. And if I keep that relationship that way, then I'm okay with my life.
Well, and I feel like the last few months. I know we've had our times, we've had our issues, we will. But I feel like in the last few months, that we have kind of come back together. And we've got to do that. We've got to be that support for you. We don't want you to feel lonely.
That don't happen a whole lot, just look,
You know, we want you to know that you've got support. No, we're not always going to agree. I know that. The 10 of us are not always going to agree. It's just not going to happen. But I think for the direction that we're going, the things that you've done, that some things we can put aside and we can come together, we can be your support. I think that that's where I personally, I'm not going to speak for the other 9 here, but I personally want to, if I get the opportunity to serve another 4 years, I need to and want to be more supportive of the director, whether it be you or whoever, and to make him or her aware that they have that support when things do go bad, when the community maybe doesn't think things are going too great, and maybe things are being said or done that you still, that you've got to support, that you've got to support the Lord. And you need that in order to keep things going, in order to keep growing, in order to get more Jacksonville Elementaries in the coming years. There's not a school in this county, whether it be Jacksonville Elementary, White Oak, whoever, but they can't do exactly what Jacksonville Elementary School did. I think we've got some of the best staff, some of the best principals. I have heard countless acknowledgments and things from staff that over the last 3 years, attitudes so much different. They're ready to work, ready to go. And like you said in your interview, you know, we've not been able to financially a lot of times support and give raises. And I hope that we can really look at things like that and be able to reward the good done. Because I think that will tell how our future is going. If this county turns out, I know it gets a bad rap a lot of times. I know when you channel 6, 8, 10, I see the trucks going up down the road. I think that's what's happening. Because that's on time and commitment. But there's a lot of good that comes out of this county. There's been a lot of good kids. There's a lot of good adults that have come out of this county. I graduated from the system, and for myself, I think I've done pretty well. And I had some great teachers and great leaders. And I was on both sides of the mountain. I was in middle school at Jellicoe and high school over here. There's teachers that I wouldn't give you many minutes for. They were great, and they're still in the system. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful for you and the direction that you've got.
And you know, Stacey, when you were talking, I made a little joke in here. I said, I learned actually make a zero on the bad day. But what happened, I was a couple of peers and the county nation on that they ranked 13 through 5 like teachers. I said, I was 0 through 4. I said, no, plus no, equal no. But just thoughts on things you said too. I honestly do appreciate anything and everything that you may say. I care more about what you say. Now, let me tell you this: I am the worst in the world in email and communication. I'll just make that known to you, and I'll mail this with no communication. And I've got this thing, and I know it aggravates some people. I'll say I work behind the scenes more. Actually, you do a lot of things that you do a lot of your hard work at home. You do work and concentrate sometimes when there's a lot of people coming and going. That's part of it. You just do it. And I don't even know what I make to be honest with you. I'm going to protect my team. Kathy's good as good.
Thank you, Mr.
John, before I get started here, whoever goes back in, you go back in, whoever the director is, I I'll support you or whoever it might be, because I'll use the kids. I didn't have a question. I got up yesterday morning, this folder, sticking on my security door, my right door. I don't know who sent it to me, who put it there, but I got some questions out of it, so I'm gonna ask. So we'll start.
Well, the same people
Okay.
wrote that thing.
First of all, so the door up. And you just passed that. I didn't even know anything about this next model school program up at the high school. What happened? I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, we talked about it on several occasions. In fact, I hadn't been here, but just my first day, we were interviewing coaches for the basketball program. While we're sitting and we're really waiting for everyone to come in, one of the gentlemen that was there I don't know how the conversation got on it, but one of the gentlemen got to talk about one of the best things they'd done in their school was the flex lunch program. And then, of course, Ms. Twitter came in and the conversation continues. Next thing you know, they go down and they visit a school or two that has this type of program. And I know this last week or week before last, it's been working beautiful. But you know, it's like anything, it works real good for a while. If you don't just continually keep things tight, the kids may get a little, like it is at home, they may start dropping some of the food or not picking up after you said. So they monitored and they adjusted it, so it's back on track again. But Vanderbilt, this coast school safe team or something came in, what's that called?
Safe and supportive schools.
Safe and supportive schools. They came in and they visited the high schools and they visited that program and they absolutely just sold by it. And they videoed the program and showing it throughout the state and encouraging other systems to look at it. One of the things that it's probably hurt some, and a lot of the kids are not probably eating their lunch, and what they shouldn't is hurt our nutrition program, but on the finances. At the same time, we need to get a happy balance on that, and so we're looking for discussions on that now. But it started, like I say, the first day I was here, the first time conversation started. Then the high school implemented it, that fall.
We don't do that now, are we?
Yeah, it's still in there. Did John go over there, they're talking about it? They say they must start.
Jellicoe's looked at that, they're a little different. The number of students they have, they can do their intervention programs and so on without that, but this seems it's going to take a better look at it next year to see if she can implement that.
I'm gonna read more another right. I might be wrong, but I probably am, but I don't know. I thought the Tennessee State average to the ACT score 21, you got 19.
It's not on the website.
It is, okay.
On the, it's that great part.
Do you plan on going in front of the county commission since this meeting is down there at Cold Lake? And they recommend our schools come on up. This program looks like the Iowa 141. Are you planning on going in front of the commissioners to ask for more money for the school system?
Well, if I have to. It does embarrass me to ask, because I've been told no a lot. And I would encourage you and invite you guys to go in there with me. So,
Okay.
be like old Aaron, hold up on.
Well, that's good. Now I've got one more, couple more. You remember when General Steiner, the last board meeting, they recommended the ROTC or everything, and he made a statement that stuck with me. I believe he said 37% students from 18 that are kids from 18 to 25 military, and I'm just throwing this out there. And he said the biggest reason, obesity, no education, and drugs. Now, we can't control obesity, we can't control drugs. But we can control the school, I mean, take someone, no. Are we, you think about that when he done that speech?
Oh, he did an outstanding job there, and he put it in gonna do perspective, as far as that goes. And a lot of the offerings that ROTC has is an encouragement to get those kids out of those grades.
He's got over Tennessee.
I know, our chairman's one of the committee for 3 or 4 of us to look at getting an ROTC program of some type of benefit. And it may take a more in-depth study than we even realize. I'd love to see that.
I've got the last thing here. Go back to 2010. Now, this was left in my board. Now, I'm not, I don't know who got it, but I appreciate it. And you all that left it for me, I appreciate it. 2010, attendance rate was 93.4. 2011 was 93.8. In 2012, it was 90.3. Graduation rate in 2010 was 86.6. 2011 was 84.7. 2012 was 80.7. And go back, ACT composition was 2010 was 18.8. 2011 was 18.2. 2012 was 17.3. And back in 2006, students, we got $6,800 for them, and now this day we get $8,100. Is that right?
Yeah, now, you'll notice on the page number 3, 4, for pupil expenditures are listed for, you've got your local 2020, 7586. The state average that year was 87.73, so we were still behind that $1,200. In 2011, the local was 77.44, state average 9,084, still, lagging behind the state. 2012, the local was 81.10, state average was 91.23, still behind. 2013, 81.97 versus 92.93. It's been consistently about the same difference each year. So, and like I say, we know our economics, how the city council done. It has, the expenditures have gone up. That has a lot to do with the stability provision and maintenance of everything.
Well, I don't know if these figures are correct or not. I don't know if they brought this to me.
State website.
2010, our attendance was 94.3. 2012 was 90.3. Can you give a little insight on that, how we're dropping down?
All right, for 2005 and 6, it was a 91% on the state website. Then it went to 83% in 2007, back to 92% in 2008. At a 94% in 2010, 93 2011, 90 2012, and for the last results that we got that's listed, yesterday we saw that for 2013 it's 95%.
95%.
For 2013. So it has actually gone up for Campbell County a little 5% over 2012. Now that was on.
I just, I don't know who this is, but I appreciate it. But I'll try to find
And
it.
I may have my.
Okay, graduation rate, we started at 10, 2010, 86.6. Now, 2012, we had an 80.7.
Okay, on the side, that list graduation rate was 83% in 2005. And let me say this, when I get to 2009, then just remember everything changes. Well, no, I said all graduation rate. Graduation rate was 83% in 05 and 06. 80% in 07, it had to be up there. 81 in 08, 86 in 10, 84 in 11, 82 in 12, and 81 in 13. So there's been like a percentage drop in all the way down the line. And right now, one of the things in our discussion with our high school principals, part of that has to do with identifying your cohort groups and realigning those cohort groups so that you've got the right numbers and the right. And irregardless, and one of the things that we want is the truth.
And I appreciate the person who's done this for me. I'm very glad. See, they give me a document, they went all the way back to Dr. Blevins. they left Dr. Martin's school record out.
Well, I've got both of them, so.
Okay, so I'm gonna get a copy of that, Mr. Martin, see what his scores was. I know you don't want to hear his name, I knew his why, but, he was a good educator, and, other than that, I don't have nothing to say. I'll thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Collins, Mr. Lawson.
We've covered a lot of information here.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always ask myself, I've been in this program for 52 years. And we've been trying to catch up for 52 years. I wonder when we're going to get there. We ain't there yet. We've been going along 52 years, we're always behind. Reckon when we'll catch up.
I don't know, that becomes a personal responsibility of every one of us. You have to say, what can I do to make a difference? Whether as a board member, as a director, as a teacher, as a parent, whoever, what have I done personally to make a difference? And I'll tell you, it's like Carlos Chapman said that one time, he said, there's more said than done.
Okay. Some of the things that I found in talking to teachers and reading what I can from other systems and finding out as much about education as I can, one of the big things that teachers have complained about now is their evaluation system. Now, evaluations have changed quite a bit over the years, and now a big percentage of the teacher's evaluation is how well the students perform on the test. And they don't particularly like that. And what are you all doing to relieve their apprehension about the way they're being evaluated?
You know, that's an ongoing issue, not only us across the state of Tennessee because of the high stakes pressure that's come into the classroom because of the testing and because of the new rigor in the curriculum. And once again, we've tried our best to provide them with interventions, coaches, and training and encouragement. And we've been blessed, I guess, because of the support we've had from teachers in trying to make those emotional differences for them. The thing that scares me the most, Mr. Watson, is testing is still on target to pick up steam. And so that brings more from the teacher. Having said that, I'm going to meet Thursday in the East Tennessee Corps office. Legislatures are pushing to push PARCC back some. And I know they had meetings first of the week in West Tennessee, and some already middle, and they'll be doing the East Tennessee group next week. I hope they do. I'm not a strong proponent of over-testing kids. At the same time, that's how we determine progress. There's a multitude of ways to determine if kids are making progress, but that's the one that they use to develop their data. They're using this data to drive everything. I've been extremely pleased with the leadership teams in schools and the teachers just getting on board and doing what they can. But it's hard to try our best to encourage them and be there for them whenever the stress of that takes place. And it gets stressful. It is extremely stressful. And the best we do is not good enough. I'm trying to relieve that stress. But at the same time, recognize the fact that that is for the actions that is in the country. And anything we can do to relieve their fears and calm their nerves is part of our job and responsibility. We're trying so hard till we're able to take all those fears and anxieties away is yet to be done. And of course, everybody's different. Some people, they absolutely flourish in a place. You've got some, you give them one little word that you may be taking a spelling test tomorrow, and they're on their nerve field. That's just like that. So we have to recognize that all individual teachers are different. We have to recognize all of our staff members are different. So we're trying our best to lead it.
Do we have very many teachers that's been given a 1 on their evaluations?
Yeah, as long as the system is set up that is with CBOS evaluations, you will find some more.
Now, what is it we're gonna do if they don't measure it, and they get a 1 so many times, when do we dismiss them?
I think it's actually 3 years for it.
Okay, now,
I know they're relooking at that mistake too.
okay, now that's what the teachers are talking about. And,
And
of course, when we ask questions, we're sitting here talking to these folks, and I realize that we're one county in the state of Tennessee, and we don't set up all these rules and guidelines, we just have to live with them, and we have to implement the rules that's handed down for us to operate in. And so these evaluations is part of the Common Core, and I'm using a lot of these, educators like the real professors in colleges and places like to use acronyms, so the down-to-earth people don't know what they're talking about. And we do that here in the county a lot. Half the people in the county don't know what Common Core is. And then you get to understand what something is, and they'll change an acronym. I always thought about vocational education. Now they've changed it to CTE. Is that right? Okay, I can't keep up with all this stuff. I like to, when I talk to people, and they don't understand this. So when we're talking about education, we need to talk to the parents in a way that they understand what we're talking about. And what the process is in education, the final product is your senior class in high school. And I used to have a lot of teachers who would say that I don't want you to tell me what to teach. I went to school and got educated, and I want to close the door and teach it the way I want to teach it. Well, that's changed. But when a parent sends his kid to school, and he graduates from high school, they think they're prepared to go on to college. Okay. Now we had, I believe it was 15 or 16 apply to go to UT, and I believe 13 of them was accepted. And what I've been told is that when our kids go to the junior college, Rome State, 75% of them has to go to school 1 year at the parents' expense because they're not ready to go to college. And I realize that's not just here, but don't that seem a little high to you that you've got 4 kids goes over there and 3 of them's not ready to go to school. And they've got a high school diploma and it says they can go. And we have to pay a year for those kids to go to school because that's just a preparation period to continue to do what the high school should have done.
Yeah, the rigor at both the high school level and the college level has been up tremendous. And
that means the lower grades is going to have to help with it.
Yeah, because, and now going back to one of the things you touched on, about the acronyms and all that, some of the things that the teachers are doing in the schools, they've got their own web pages now. And they simplify for the kids, which is a blessing. I made a note in here, I know I first took the job, I had to spend days just trying to learn what the acronyms meant. And my first director meeting, there were other statements that was made with regarding an acronym. I hadn't heard any of that stuff before I was there at the time, because it was new stuff being unfolded there. But I had to learn that process. Now, what the individual schools are doing and what the individual classrooms are doing now is simplifying those, and kids can go online now with the new curriculum and do a lot of studies. I know my grandson took a test online last night, and it just shocks the daylights out of me compared to what we used to do. And
well, you mentioned that part test, and every kid's going to take what we always call the achievement test.
yeah,
They're going to take that on by using a computer. Well, I understand now they're having some problems with that. And you're gonna have to get you some, cardboard boxes and tear them apart and put blinders up between the rows in the classroom. And we used to, we had some old mules back at home, and the way we kept from biting each other, we had to put blinders on them. Now, we're gonna have to put blinders, is that not what we're doing, putting blinders on the kids?
This is be a first experience for all of us across the state of Tennessee, to test this thing number two. Or we're gonna have to hog tie some of them. I don't know, this is new. But now, I say it again, I think that we're gonna see that pull back. And I think that announcement will come to us this week. I think common sense is.
But as it is right now,
No, it's
they say
on there.
that if we go down to Nashville, they take us in those classes and train us as board members, and they tell us this stuff. And so that's what I depend on and listen to. And so, I don't know about whether we're prepared to do all that or not, and I don't know if the parents and the kids are gonna understand what we're doing, but that's your all's job to see if they do. So if a parent comes in and sees that there's rows down through there and got cardboard boxes and got the kids separated, and they said you'd have to turn the seat around this way and turn one's back to the other one, so he's looking north and he's looking south, so they can take the test. Is that right?
Yeah, we're gonna be doing some creative things.
Oh, okay, well, I hope that,
Just try to fulfill that, if in fact we get to that. This is the last year for TCAP, correct?
okay, I'll not take up all the time here. We keep talking about a virtual school, and I don't think much of virtual schools. And, we had one up in Union County, and it fizzled out and had the lowest scores in the state of Tennessee, and then they come in here and tried to sell us a bill of goods to put up a virtual school. Now, we went to that meeting down there, and they were talking about virtual schools, but they're talking about little virtual schools. And they didn't call it that, they called it community schools. And what they said they was going to do, they was going to go over to Elk Valley, and they let the school in Elk Valley just teach the children as they normally do. Then they were going to remove some of these kids out and offer them special help. And they were going to use community resources and community people to do that. Was that not what they said they were going to do?
That was the conversation, absolutely.
Now, they didn't talk about one of these virtual schools where it's like it was when you had people in Memphis would take their classes out of Union County and all that. They're talking about using community help. Is that not what I got out of that?
Sure.
And the money was going to come from these other places.
Sure.
So that sounds good, but usually in church, if you want to destroy something, form a committee. And that's what they're going to do on this. Okay. Now,
See, that can happen unless this body approves.
yes, and volunteer work don't last long. And, it's like we're talking about this RTI. That's another one of those acronyms. As this board, can you tell me exactly the words that RTI means? What it is to give some remedial help to the kids that's not functioning like they should. And we're doing some of that. We're hiring coaches and so on. And it seems to me with all this help that our progress is awful slow. Like I said now, 52 years is a long time to try to catch up. And it takes great patience.
We saw improvements in all of our core subjects this year. That's the first time in 5 years we've seen that kind of improvement. Now there's.
You saw that in the elementary grades more so than
in
in
the high school, there was a deal in algebra 2, was it? And English 2. Is that right? In those two areas. So when you get those, get that information, and then we have to work out we're going to change that. That's good work.
Well, okay, are you satisfied that this is going to work? Now, how many years are we going to have to wait,
Well, here's the thing.
I finally jumped the fence. You'd say, I've grown up and I jumped the fence. When are we going to get over it?
Here's the thing. Kids only go to school for about 13 years. Then they'll bring an all new group in. And when they're born, they're not born with all that knowledge that's passed from the previous generation. You start anew with each group. And also, that you can change faces, you can change places. But if you've got a system in place where that you've got proven practices, you've got curriculum that's rigid enough and the teachers are trained well enough, that maybe we can avoid some of the mistakes in the early years and layer this thing through. You may have, each cohort group is different. It's just like I can remember.
Okay, now that there, wait, right there, you used the term now.
Yeah.
A cohort to me is a friend. Now tell me what a cohort
It's
is in education.
It's a group that have stayed together all the way through in school. Am I telling it correct? That's the best way to describe it.
You're talking about grouping kids.
Yeah. I'm
Well,
talking
let's
about.
call it group.
No, I'm not talking about ability. No, I'm talking about the kid comes in as a freshman, all those freshmen, they go through as a group.
Well, that's what the law was doing.
But see,
I went to school as a freshman, as a sophomore.
Yeah, but what's happened, because of their lack of getting some of their hours and what have you, that some of them get reclassified. And so the high school has done an exceptionally good job of making sure that they've identified all the cohort groups and they are tested and identified as such, so that we're getting the right score. And we won't even know that.
We're doing that this year with freshmen.
All groups.
Okay, all right. I've got one other question now. Part of the contract here that we're using says that the Board of Education collectively or individually shall promptly refer to the director all criticisms, complaints, and make suggestions. Okay, now I'm kind of outspoken and I'm kind of a lightning rod on the board, I know that. If the board gets tired of hearing me, they're wanting me to hush now and let them get out of here and go home, but I like to say what I'm going to say when I get started. Now, I got in trouble because I could bring criticism to you if I hear them, and then I will make suggestions. And so I don't think I'll be prosecuted for that. All right. Now, we're talking here of sharing information and working and cooperating. One of the biggest complaints that I get in trouble over in the board meetings is I fuss with Jeff Marlowe an awful lot. I don't like the way our financial system works. He has too much control over the school's finances. And he knows more about how the money is spent than anybody else. And you as a director of schools absolutely can't follow that budget every day like it needs to be followed and still do all the other duties you have. You've got a lot of duties. Okay. Are you and the chairman of the board going to go before the county commission and ask for extra money so that we can implement these things that you've been talking about?
The process right now is underway to determine what we need and what we need to ask for from our budget.
Okay, I was hoping there'd be a real big crowd here at parents today, so that I was going to ask them to do this. They're down here to condemn the board, or they're kind of, from what I've been reading, we get a lot of condemning. I didn't know that we had made any discussions about running you off. And I thought you'd told us you was going to retire, and we thought, well, he is, and then you changed your mind. And now they're out like we're just ready to hang you and hang you an effigy. I haven't heard any of that. Okay, well, WLF runs all those, Mr. Freeman's here, and he runs a lot of those polls and all that stuff on there, and it sounds that way to me. But what they're talking about is not what the board thinks. And we're thinking about we need a budget, and that we would rather the school department had more control of the way their money is spent. And I think it would get to the right places. And I'll say this, and then I'm going to hush. The other night at the board meeting, I embarrassed a young man. He stood up there and asked for money for a fishing club, and he asked for some money for the golf, and then I got to talking to the high school, and I said, how in the world can we improve our math and science? They said, well, you can improve science a great deal if you would put some things in our science labs that we'd have to work with. Okay, I'm more interested in the science labs than I am fishing. So I think when we're doing this budget, that one thing that should be in that science is to get some materials and supplies for our teachers to work with our students in the biology and chemistry and so on at the high school.
I don't think we just spread it.
Okay, we don't ever get the money and they don't ever have the supplies, but I'd like to see that done.
That's the fire time.
Okay, thank you, I'll hush with that.
Well, what do you don't, I mean, what you think there's a lot wrong, be the best at it, right?
Well, I try to. I didn't take that course on how to win friends and influence people. I missed that course.
No, they had another that said pulling your own purse string.
Okay, all right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lawson. Before I get into my questions, Mr. Poston, and I'll just take my time on the redirect, I'd just like to address some of the questions that have been put forth and maybe ask a few quick questions before I get into the questions. Number one, Mr. Higgs, what can we do as a board to help you? Mr. Lawson, are we going to go before the board and ask for money? I've just sat here and I've written down nurses, ROTC funding, behavioral teachers, more AP teachers, more funding for the arts, band programs, certified teachers in computer labs, SROs in elementary schools, technology funding, and science labs. This chairman, this year, is going to go into the budget with Mr. Poston if the board feels that that's the direction we want to go, and we are going to stand up to the one source we have, which is our funding body, and if we feel like that is necessary, to quote Mayor Baird, to make major changes in our school system so that economically businesses can move in here, then I am the one that are going to offer that back to the mayor and show him that we are serious about it, and then we'll see if the elected officials on the other side are as serious about advancing the education as we are. And that's not a indictment on hanging a hammer on their head. It's just if we're going to have this dialogue, if we're going to step out as a Board of Education like we did down there the other night, and we find that all these things have to be done in order to advance our school system and get us off the bottom 30%, and everybody agrees that more funding is needed, who is the people that's going to require to be able to give that funding? And it's very simple. It's the county commission. If the county commission does not give the school board additional funding, we can't fund it. Now, in Mr. Poston's defense, if you'll check the record, they've been a lot of cuts made. A lot of cuts. The monies that are coming into the school system now, I would dare say, in my opinion, is being more wisely spent than it's ever been in county government. More wisely. Keep that in mind. More wisely. You can take good money. If the county commission give us $1 million next week, we can take it and squander it and put it on this program and that program. But we've got to express to them that we know these areas that will improve, and that's what I have been in conversations with Mr. Poston, and he alluded to that he was going to bring his principals in the first of the week, so that we can identify those areas of funding. There may be areas that we can divert funding. All right, Mr. Poston? So all these questions are very good and very pertinent to moving the system along. And as a board, we need to stand together in that with Mr. Poston if we do decide to go to the county commission for additional funding. And not go halfway or not go to a point where we say, oh, it's election year, we better not go over and ruffle any feathers because we'll get beat. We got to be serious about what we're doing. So that, just to answer those questions, I wanted to address that before we went any further. Also, to expand on Mr. Ort's question, Mr. Poston, and you may not be able to answer this because I couldn't, and what few years I've been on this board, I tried to ask myself this question. They said we need to make major changes in our system. Can you answer any area that you know of that we need to make major changes? And if they are, I'd like to hear.
Well, you know, the thing, I'd say the things that they're talking about, like pie in the sky thing. When I say that, I'm talking about the night labs and those types of things. That one little thing that we purchased would probably take our entire budget. And that is, in my opinion, that's what we're talking about. We've got to be realistic. We've got to be pragmatic. You take what you've got and do what you can as best you can. And if they are as serious as they say they are, what's going to be their contribution to help us do that? It's easy to talk. That's the easiest thing to work. So what's going to be their contribution? If they want to invest in Campbell County, who's stopping?
And Mr. Diner, just one quick question. If we increase AP classes at Campbell County High School, don't we have to have more teachers?
You either have to have more teachers or you're gonna have to train some of the teachers you have. To be an AP teacher, you have to take a 2-week, 3-week course during the summer. And AP classes has a very rigorous, you have to have all of your objectives laid out week by week. You have to be trained in teaching those, and you have to prove that you're teaching those as the year goes along. Ms. Wheeler at Campbell County High School has added an AP class each year that you guys have been here for the last 3 or 4 years. And she likes to add about 1 to 2 a year because students have to be, the culture of the student also has to be changed, that I'm willing to take that more rigorous class. That's a benefit. So you kind of have to educate the students along as she builds that culture in her school. And we have the technology that at Jellicoe High School, we can technologically have students over there, as long as we have them supervised, take an AP class if we don't have enough to fill a class at Jellicoe High School.
Thank you, Mr. Diner. One more thing before I get to your question. When I ran, it was very common that, and I ran specifically on removing Dr. Martin. You go back to my ads, I wasn't bashful about wanting Dr. Martin out of this county. I'd heard things that he had did down in Putnam County, which I've heard even more since I've become a board member. I've heard things that went on at Campbell County High School under his leadership. And I do know this, when me and Mr. Poston had our first conversation about the direction of this school system, I asked him, I said, Mr. Poston, please do not allow them to lead you in the direction of not being honest with where we're at. Where we're at on our scores, where we're at on our graduation rate, where we're at on our ACTs. Because if you don't know where your bottom is, you can't start coming up. And I think since he's been here, and I'll say this much about him, I have no problem publicly saying that integrity-wise, I know for a fact that they're accurate and that we're heading up. So things that have been accomplished, Mr. Lawson, for 52 years, it takes a while to get started back up. I mean, it takes a while to correct. I mean, and hopefully, let's just have enough optimism that 5, 10 years from now, no matter who's standing there in front of whoever's here, that we will see those changes coming, and it'll be a better time to have pride in our system. So I want to just say my piece on that. Mr. Poston, if you were to have recognize one weakness, if any, in advancing our system's ability to improve professionally, whether that be funding or whether that be more training for teachers, what, in your mind, just quickly, what do you think is a weakness that we have that we could focus on trying to improve as far as the relationship between teacher, student, or maybe it's the home, whatever?
And that's the very thing I was going to mention. You mentioned the home. We can make all kinds of excuses. we can make excuses, but our responsibility is to take each challenge, we'll let each challenge come to us. When they come to us, whether they've got an IQ like mine's equal to mashed potato, or whether it's blowing up, boiling, we take them where they are. So we try to attempt to keep them in the least restricted environment. But our battles in getting the kids prepared to test are things that the baggage that they bring to us from home. We are living in a drug-induced society, and by the way, we need a free drug workplace. Oh, that's crazy. They come to us like that, and now we're 52% of grandparents are raising the kids now. Who's going to raise the next generation? And so it does take us all working to try to provide these kids. And these teachers have become moms and dads and mamas and papas to a lot of these kids, and that is the only time that they feel safe. That is the only time that they feel cared for. But when they bring those baggages in the classroom, sometimes it may take a full day just to get a good 5-minute moment for them. What you call a real-time moment, where they are having a successful day. And those are the issues we face. It's not unique to Campbell County, it's across this nation, everywhere. But that is the hardest thing I think any of our teachers, and you have a lot of transients. When I say that's your co-work we call that. But you have a lot of transients that come and go, and teachers, when they've got everything on the road, and they get a little Susie or little Johnny that comes in, and they're months behind, or they have so many issues, they've got to try to catch them up. So you understand now why you need additional interventions, you need additional coaching. Now they're battling the demands of the Common Core. You got to do it this amount of time, you got to do it this amount of time, you got to do it this amount of time. And in order to meet those kids' needs, they come to you, and you cannot open them up. You can't open their head up before that knowledge is. You take them where they are. And I may be wrong, some of you teachers probably speak to that better than me. It's taking those kids and how they come to us, the culture as it is, and try to get them there.
2 more questions. One, and this is not a criticism, this is what I would hope would be an encouragement. In your next year, would it be okay to ask you if you could be more of having central office staff? We talk about rigor for kids. I've been approached by a few that have said that they need more help. And I'm talking teachers, principals, whatever. I would hope you would take this statement as an encouragement so that your central office, regardless, and not to say that they are not doing it now, but would work on it even harder, if it's possible, to extend that help out to those principals that may be needing, or teachers or whatever, and be more visible in that area. Again, that's not a criticism, that's a relaying of a message, and I hope that you would, in your year, you do that.
And we definitely, we have similar discussions on Monday morning staff meeting. And everybody has an opportunity to give us what they've been doing, what their concerns are, what they're going to be doing, what they're doing that week, or the Monday for me. And we try to be, in other words, it may be this Vicki with the nutrition program. Her program is just as important as the English department, and we try to all be on the same page at the same time. So we try to be these things focused on. Tammy, just this week, she's put herself on a committee at the Quality Elementary, I think, because some academic moves need to be made, or teaming up teachers. You take like the 1s and the 5s, you team them up, and you try to pull each other up at the same time. Yeah, I don't have a problem. And let me say this, the happiest time that I have is when I'm in the school, and I've not been able to get out as much as I'd love to, but now we've got things, I hate to say this because it's going to fall tomorrow, or Monday, we've got things kind of on the road, I'm supposed to be able to get out a little bit often. Now, we think Monday's got all those interviews, so. But I enjoy getting these stuff.
One last question. We don't want to leave out safety at work. I've been very outspoken about SRO funding in the elementary school. In my mind, an elementary student kid, or student, children, or the parents should have just as much protection as the middle school and the high school. The middle school and the high school in this county, we've came a long way with providing funding for SROs in those schools. I would hope that your next year, that you will dedicate a tremendous amount of effort in the next year's budget to hopefully fund SROs to be placed in that.
And I really want to see some motion on business. We've made mention of some of the notes there. We'll be soon getting all the vegetables replaced and the card reader. But going back to mention elementary, you're going to have more irate parents in elementary than we have in middle school. Because a lot of times, parents, once they get in middle school and high school, they just love it. Not those things.
Okay, thank you. Now, if we'll just quickly go back around, if you've heard something you'd like to ask, please do, and then move on.
Well, it's nothing I heard, it's something I should ask you. Mr. Poston, I know this goes back to money and stuff. I got two little things. I would like to know what you think about school uniforms. And I also like to know what you think about, we have maintenance people, cooks, and janitors. Hasn't had a raise in a long time. And I know it takes money to do this, but I wouldn't want to work nowhere 10, 20 years, and I know nobody else would without a raise. Just a couple of quick comments on this.
Let me, on uniforms, I'm not so sure about the big prep look as far as the fancy clothes, because it's almost impossible for the students to afford them. But now, I like the khakis for polo. And I know most of this, they got most of the khakis polo. But I would love to see a school voluntarily with that place and get the parents behind. Parents got to be behind. You'll find that it's actually a cost savings. You don't have to buy 2 or 3 shirts or 2 or 3 pair of pants or the shorts or whatever and keep them clean. You don't have to be in competition. Some of the school systems have done that on a voluntary basis. It's working. I'd like to see one of our schools that get the parents behind them and volunteer to do that.
I have researched it. I've researched it pretty intensely, and I've seen where graduation rate goes up, bullying goes down, attendance goes up, and grades go up. And I haven't, everybody look at it, they pull it up on the internet. But I appreciate that answer. If you could just quickly go about the maintenance, the cooks, the janitors.
Of course, that'll be, it's always on the table to discuss salary increases for everybody. I'm sure that'll be back on the table.
But we need to kind of support that a little bit, I think, of all of us, because I wouldn't want to work nowhere that many years with no raise, and I know nobody else wants to do it.
Just to support the record, the maintenance and the cooks and the teachers, they have gotten a raise under the last 3 years.
You got 50 cents.
They got a raise.
3 years. All right, I'll give you that.
I'm not arguing.
I know, I give you that, but I mean, it's
not been forever.
Well, but it's still, we need to look back at it. So, and I appreciate it.
Anybody else?
I appreciate what Mr. Hill said, you're the first guy we point fingers at, so you're to blame. Ford is as much to blame as anybody else when it comes to it. You're enforcing our policies that we set. The best example I can give of it is the last couple of days, how many telephone calls that you had trying to enforce the policy that this board said about our athletics.
We've had, I didn't have many assemblies, but I had a couple, 3, and got emails on the board. And it is a real sensitive issue because we've got 2 different worlds as far as the property of the land and of course with the snow in Jellicoe area and the way our policy said if you miss it, you take school out of the way, you got to take it out of the way. And but I do appreciate the support that you gave us with for you. On the second day, the reason, and Mr. Martin, verify this. We actually, it's kind of like a sign the coaches have got at high school, all in. I believe you're all in or not at all. So we had I called up there at the high school and asked the principal, I said, at Yellow Flag, I said, now, how are the roads there? Are they improving? Do you feel like you can have games tonight? And I made all the board members again, and my comment was at that time, I wouldn't want my kids on the road. It would become a dead issue maybe. And so we didn't have them. And then yesterday, though, with it, everything was clear, everything was ready to go. And of course, the thing that is, had we not had those games last night available, and some of us are playing today or not, it was affecting the tournament. And of course, and I know why the policy was made several years ago, and it may be that you all want to revisit and let us, give us some leeway and authority to make those decisions on school-to-school basis. Something maybe we'll have to discuss.
Anyone else? Mr. Post, do you have any closing comments?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity again to offer my services, and like I say, I'll make more mistakes. Now, bring on the lightning rod, boy. Let me tell you something. The loyal opposition often brings problems down the closet and everything else. You know, gold doesn't become gold until the pressure, but the diamonds are until the hot fire. Diamonds don't become diamonds until pressures, but the coat. So, you know, after 42 years, what have I not been through?
Thank you very much.